In our Wide World program today, we're visiting Turkey, one of the world's oldest inhabited countries. People have lived in Turkey for more than 7,000 years, and for much of that period, the country's been a busy crossroads between Europe and Asia. This was the meeting place for Chinese merchants, Arabian princes, Russian gypsies, and Greek sailors. They came here to fight, to trade, or simply to find a new life. And in the process, they gave Turkey a richly textured culture. We've come to the town of Konya for our first story. It's about a people who make up just one strand of that culture. A people whose origins go back to the 15th century and the Ottoman Empire. The Turkish minstrels. This colorful group is heading for one of Konya's finest mosques. It's the minstrels' annual get-together, a week of spontaneous performances in the open air. 8 sultans are buried here, but during the festival, the mosque has a more lively use. Some minstrels wear exotic costumes, dating from the 12th century when Konya was Turkey's capital. Others, like this group, dress more conservatively. They're leading the cleansing prayers of Islam beneath a billboard announcing the day's program. After the prayers, the festival gets underway with a traditional love song.
Toplandım aşıklar, yanıyor yeşil ışıklar, yanıyor yeşil ışıklar, aşka düşmüştür maşuklar. 10. yıl bayram olur Konya'da, Kur'an meydanı, hey hey hey, geri dönülmez. Koçum dönülmez.
Hecakı verer mi hakkın ışığına? Biz toplandık.
The minstrels' songs and fables all revolve around the same themes: trust and friendship, courage and honor. And just as in modern pop songs, many of them feature broken love affairs over and over again. Minstrels and folk singers love to get together. Their most popular stringed instruments are the baglama, or these larger bazouks, made famous in Greece as the bouzouki. To Western ears, Turkish folk songs may seem plaintive and loosely formed. In fact, they have their own unique precision and grace in common with ancient religious chants of the East. Turkey's wandering minstrels have acquired an unusual respect in Turkish society. They're welcome guests wherever they go. And even the most conservative Muslim households are glad to offer them hospitality, for it's widely accepted that minstrels can do no wrong. Abdul Wahab Kokoman has traveled many miles to take part in Konya's festival. He's a well-known poet minstrel, and this family consider it an honor to provide him with board and lodging. As a celebrity, he's larger than life to the children who sit enraptured by his strange ways and colorful stories. Though glad to accept this kindness, minstrels are not beggars. Abdul Wahab happily pays in the only currency he's got plenty of: his music.
Neşeli bir bayram yaptık desene, sazın çeken hodri meydan geliyor. Neşeli bir bayram yaptık desene, sazın çeken hodri meydan geliyor.
The climax of the Konya festival is a final competition before a packed audience. It's not all singing, and not all tradition either. Abdul recites his own poem about that Muslim superhero, Muhammad Ali. For the rest of the minstrels, though, it's a battle of words and tunes, a chance to launch new songs and try out complex rhythms. The Turkish people are especially fond of sentimental verses, and some old favorites heard at this concert were The Consumptive Girl, The Prison Warden, and Death in Foreign Parts. But beside the set pieces, there's many an occasion for impromptu music making, a kind of minstrel jam session. Although minstrels were common all over medieval Europe, they had almost died out by the middle of the 16th century. Their practice was disapproved of by the church. But if the Konya festival is anything to go by, the minstrel traditions are still alive and well and flourishing in Turkey. We've moved to the far northwest of Turkey for our next story, to the sleepy town of Edirne. Like several other towns in Turkey, Edirne was once the country's capital. These days, it's famous chiefly for its beautiful mosques, a large gypsy population, and perhaps the skill of its shoeshine boys. Edirne does have another attraction, though, and one centered on a group as interesting as Konya's minstrels. But the concern here is not music, but sport. These people are converging on Edirne for an annual wrestling championship that's been held here for at least 600 years. For centuries, wrestling's been one of Turkey's favorite sports. Turks have even been known to wrestle camels, so it's no surprise that wrestlers like this ex-star are treated as celebrities. In fact, over the years, the sport's become so surrounded in legends and traditions that some of Turkey's wrestlers have achieved the status of folk heroes. For 1 week in June, people converge on an island in the Tunka River for the Kırkpınar Wrestling Tournament. It's a popular event, and each year there are hundreds of entries. Bouts are held in 5 categories, from lightweight through to the massive heavyweights. The whole tournament is under the control of one master, or aga, and all over the field, individual bouts are supervised by groups of referees who are usually former champions themselves. The wrestling at Kırkpınar is known as greasy wrestling because the contestants are liberally coated in olive oil to make it difficult for their opponents to get a grip. During the week, hundreds of gallons of oil are used, not only on the wrestlers' bodies, but also on their thick buffalo hide breeches known as kispets. These kispets absorb several times their own weight in oil. Creased and ready, and displaying their names proudly in steel studs, the wrestlers prepare to fight for some of Turkey's most sought-after trophies. Drums and horns are played throughout the bouts, and before the tournament begins, the wrestlers perform a distinctive dance called the peshnev. It's meant to upset the opposition. It seems a joke to most of the men, but then it's just one of those obscure traditions at Kırkpınar that continue unquestioned every year. The grappling begins. And as with all wrestling, the idea is to force your opponent's shoulders onto the ground. But here, all the contestants are experts and slippery customers as well. Unlike normal wrestling, the Kırkpınar fighters must keep going until there's only one winner on the field. That can mean hours of battling and straining until one by one the contestants weaken. The winner of one bout must go on immediately to the next, a method that soon separates the men from the boys. Kırkpınar means 40 fountains. Legend says this field was the scene of a bloody battle between Turks and Bulgarians 600 years ago. 40 Turkish warriors, all renowned wrestlers, were said to have been killed and buried here. After the war, their comrades returned to visit the graves and found each gravestone had miraculously become a tiny fountain. In honor of the dead, an annual wrestling championship was founded and named Kirk Pinar, and it's been held on this field ever since. For those who get tired just watching the wrestlers use up energy, there are less demanding ways of spending the day in the fair that surrounds the sports field. A fair is a fair wherever you live. And this one has all the usual weird and wonderful sights that never fail to leave mouths gaping. Games of chance rather than skill or strength are more in line with the fun of this fair. But a Turkish fair is also a gourmet's paradise. No hamburgers or hot dogs here, only sumptuous meats, fresh fruits, and homemade wines for an endless stream of hungry visitors. And if you've not yet forgotten the wrestling, there are other traditional diversions guaranteed to put the contest completely out of your mind. If it's a choice between belly dancers and oily wrestlers, some visitors to Kirk Pinar won't see the outside of this tent. At the end of the day, Kirk Pinar has a new greasy wrestling champion. We'll leave him to his fans, and in our next story, take a closer look at those Turkish belly dancers. Bright lights of Istanbul. And this is Sahir Seniz, performing nightly at Bebek Maxim's, Turkey's top-of-the-town nightclub. At 25, Sahir has reached the top of her career as one of the best in Turkey at the belly dance. Belly dancing's a serious business in Turkey, a national institution that's as much art as entertainment. That's why Turkish belly dancers are sought after worldwide. Strangely enough, the road to success starts from unpromising beginnings. This is Sulakule, a shanty town of gypsies on the outskirts of Istanbul. The gypsies first came here 1,000 years ago, after they'd abandoned their caves outside the Byzantine city. The people of Sulakule claim to be the elite of the gypsy world. They're certainly unusual gypsies. They don't wander, they don't speak Romany, and not all of them are dark-skinned. But like all gypsies, they're fiercely proud, clannish, and they apply strict rules of conduct among those of their own kind. Living conditions for the Sulakule people are the worst in Istanbul. There is no proper sanitation, no sewerage system, and no regular power supply. But never having owned much, people seem to feel they have little or nothing to lose. The gypsies' pride can be seen in the handsome faces of their children. There's dignity in these fine features and dark, expressive eyes. There'll be little schooling for these children, but all in all, they're part of a happy-go-lucky community whose way of life has little in common with that of outsiders. For countless generations, talented singers, dancers, composers, and instrumentalists have left the Sulakule slums to find fame and fortune in the entertainment world. This young girl has already set her heart on becoming a great singer, but for the time being, she's got less glamorous work to do. For those in Sulakule who are not musicians or dancers, there are other traditional gypsy pursuits. Some are horse traders. Others make a living by salvaging, or by selling or bartering articles other people throw away as garbage. Nothing, apparently, is without value, and you may sometimes pick up something to please the wife. How about a new stove? Anywhere else in Turkey, sons are preferred to daughters. But here, a girl's a blessing from God because she can be taught to dance. Lessons begin here, in an old barn that's regarded as Sulakule's unofficial dancing academy. And the girls start very young. Mukram Usterel is the teacher. She was once a highly paid and much sought-after performer. Now she passes on her skills to the youngsters. Her most promising students can look forward to well-paid work, not only in Ankara and Istanbul, but also in the United States, Europe, and the Middle East. This young Cinderella has all the makings, even with a hole in her sock. On their way to the top, young girls, often from 13 onwards, will be out making a living. These promising novices are dancing at one of the many small dinner parties held in the homes of better-off citizens on the fringe of Sulakule. The decorations on the belly dancers' costumes have an interesting history. Young girls used to sew on coins to make them jingle, and so make themselves more attractive to the men. It was also a clever way of collecting extra money for their dowries for when they got married. An evening like this can cost the host anything from 4,000 to 5,000 lira. That's more than $250. Though not all the money's for the dancers. Some goes on bottles of raki wine, some on spicy food and fees for the musicians. This is the customary way of showing appreciation. It's popular with the customers, and it certainly beats leaving the tip on a plate. It's just another party to the band, but the men of Sulakule like to get in on the act too. Many of them become players of the clarinet, dulcimer, or drum. The amount of tipping depends on the dancer's performance and the generosity of the guests. These men seem exceptionally pleased with the evening's events. But when the party's over, the girls will share all the money they've earned together. It might look free and easy, but tipping apart, there are strict rules against touching the girls during the dancing. The gypsies expect the audience to enjoy the evening just by looking, and anyone who breaks the moral code risks punishment by the gypsy community. Even when they reach the top of their profession, the belly dancers of Sulakule don't forget their origins and their families. And when the time comes for them to retire, many return home, often to train their successors. 1,000 years ago, a Persian prince said that a fine belly dancer must have loose joints and a great agility in twirling and shaking her hips. In one way, though, it's not a dance at all. To a true artiste, the legs are irrelevant. It's the rest of Sahir's body that moves, undulates, and ripples to the music. There are 12 different tempos in belly dancing, each suggesting a different mood. The expert should be able to express life, death, happiness, sorrow, love, and anger through her body. This dance is the Karasilama, the Turkish belly dance of passion. Dancers like Sahir express the body's sensuality as an art form. It's a rare talent that's proudly passed on by the Turkish gypsies of Sulakule.